Hello, families, and welcome to another episode of Role Model Makers Experts Cafe. I'm your host, Dr. L, the Parent Whisperer. And today with me, I have an amazing human being, a wonderful lady that has been part of our community. She does really good work, and I think you need to get to know her. Her name is Miss Carol Vincie. Carol, thank you so much for being here, taking time out of your busy schedule to share with us a little bit more about what you do. Let's start with the background of your expertise and how you got started and why you do what you do today.
Well, thank you so much for this opportunity. I really appreciate it. I have a very eclectic group of expertise. I had an extremely successful corporate career. I was in the venture capital arena during the dot-com craze of the 90s, did a lot of real estate investing, and only to discover a short period of time ago that I'm ADD, attention deficit disorder. And as I look back over all of the various things that I did, I recognize that my ADD was responsible for my success. The creativity, the vision, the determination, the boundless energy, the courage to take positions that may not be popular with the general population, regardless of what environment I worked in, were all part of the strengths of ADD or ADHD.
Absolutely.
And
I love,
I use both terms because when I started working on this, one of my female colleagues said to me, if you only talked about ADHD, I would have ignored your work because that's my brother. Typically, women don't have the hyper characteristics, which is why we very rarely get diagnosed in school.
absolutely. And I do want to mention this as well that between ADD and ADHD, human brain has two parts to it when it comes to focus. One is the ability to focus on one task, and the other one is the ability to shift focus from one task to the other. And in many cases, when it comes to ADD, it's the ability to shift focus that is challenged, whereas with ADHD, it's the ability to focus on one task consecutively for a long period that's challenged. So, but I do want to make sure, nevertheless, that I mention this to our audience that this is actually a celebration of our diversity and much less about the last part, the D part, which, for a very long time has been characterized as a disorder or a disability. Because a lot of the breakthroughs and a lot of changes that has happened historically has happened because of the different processing ability of the human brain. And thank you for what you do. And as a fellow ADHD person, I
Well,
definitely
I
go
know,
ahead
and
with
I
the
have
best.
been criticized by some people to say, no, it's all defects. There's nothing possible positive about this. And I remind them that if you're wearing an iWatch or you carry an iPhone, thank you, Steve Jobs. If you've ever gone to one of the Disney events locations or watched any of their movies, thank you, Walt Disney.
So,
And some of the most unique and novel products or inventions have come from people who have the ability to take a unique look at something.
So, for parents, if you have a child that is on the autism spectrum disorders, please make sure that you discover with them the advantages and the gifts that they have and how to work with those gifts because they are capable of doing amazing things. And we want to definitely support, inspire, and empower the children to take advantage of these gifts to benefit humanity and themselves in the process. And celebrate that. So, with that being said, Carol, tell me a little bit more about what you do with families and your specific focus.
Well, I've written a book, A Parent's Guide to Supporting Your ADD ADHD Daughter, because I want to point out some of the unique struggles that females have that aren't recognized in the medical profession. The condition is, in fact, gender neutral. And yet, male students will be at least 3 times more likely to get diagnosed with the condition than their female colleagues. Eating disorders and self-harm are out of control in the female population. the suicide rate among females from the age of 12 to 20 is almost 8 times that of the general population. And my book addresses some of the ways to engage with your child and not just focus on the defects. I do not address those. And the other thing that I realized, my mom used to tell the story that when I was still in my crib at 5:30 in the morning, I would bang on the railing saying, "I cry more," because I was done with this dull, boring, repetitive activity known as sleep.
Right,
And she
exactly.
wanted another hour and a half of sleep. I was not hearing of it. So the signs show up very early, and we need to be attentive to that so that we can support them and help them discover what their unique skills and strengths are.
Carol, what are some of the challenges both with parents and parenting as well as with establishments in society that we face that you hope to address through the book?
Well, the supply of trained medical and therapeutic professionals is limited. So it needs to be a team effort. And my book starts the process, and I'm actually working on an expansion of the book that will be available as an online class. And I'll tell you how to reach out to me at the end. But I'm taking people through some of the issues to be concerned about, how to be supportive of your child, and remember that they need a lot more positive encouragement than no's. I remember when I was playing competitive tennis and I was in a clinic and I said no when I was standing at the net trying to learn how to volley. And my instructor said, "Stop that. You have to say 10 yeses for every no." And I encourage parents to remember that and actually try to keep score of how much positive support do we receive, because we're a little more sensitive than their other children if they have, more than one child. And not everybody will have the condition. But definitely positive reinforcement is so essential.
So I know we talk about positive reinforcement. For this group of children, what constitutes positive reinforcement? Can you give an example or two?
Well, when you're trying to build new skills and not rattling off 5 different things to do when you're getting ready for school in the morning, but give them one at a time because our brains don't remember. And after, if they brush their teeth, say, "Great, thank you for that." And then what's the next step? And the family may choose, do you brush your teeth before or after breakfast? But just reinforce that. When they put their pajamas in the drawer as opposed to just dropping them on the floor, say, "Great job. I'm glad you remembered that." Every little thing, because we truly want to please the people around us. But if we're told don't do that, we don't know what the positive side is. We've heard what not to do, but you're assuming that we can automatically guess what the proper behavior is. And our brains don't necessarily work that way. So that's a key. Reinforce and say, "Glad you remembered your homework assignment. You know, thank you for helping set the table." Every little thing, positive. Not you forgot one glass at one of the settings, but great job.
In our society that is nowadays faster paced and also becoming more and more competitive, how do we avoid this comparison and the competition? Because the metrics are completely different. Yet, in society, a lot of times individuals are often measured against one metrics, whether it's academic performance or social performance. So, how do we convey this message to kids that we have that are on the spectrum?
Well, that's why I focus on what is their strength.
Mhm.
And then if somebody is good at baseball and somebody else is good at math, they're very different, but they're both positive strengths. So you
Mhm.
can't compare a math genius with a, with a potential professional athlete in any sport. And if you maintain that difference, and it takes time. I mean, somebody created 21 days to create a new habit just because it was easy to put it together as a three week process if you were trying to sell something. But it truly takes longer. It is 66 days to create a habit for anybody. But for those of us with ADD or ADHD, it could be 2 or 3 times that. So patience, but recognizing and some sort of reward system, whether it's a star or it's extra time on the laptop or whether it's going to a movie that's popular, recognize it with positive rewards. And that, that may not be a report card score, but it can be registered as how many stars did you get this week?
Wonderful. These are really wonderful tips. I hope that the parents are taking notes of these and making sure that they're implementable. Speaking of implementation, how do you get the entire family on board and supporting kids that are on the spectrum?
Well, I recommend a weekly family meeting, including your non-ADD or diversity family members, so that everyone has a chance to participate. And some of the skills that you'll be focusing on for your neurodiversity family members will also help the other part of the family. Learning how to schedule time and tracking time is a tool that certainly will help in any job that I've ever had. And so not making it, well, we're doing this because this individual has a problem. We're doing it as a family effort. And also this way, the non-neurodiverse family members don't feel neglected. They're not left out. They're part of the family process. And, their support to their siblings is also important. And, if they
And
see their, sibling being bullied, they're like they can step in and defend the individual. And they they we don't want to create, well, you get more time because you're struggling and
mm,
create a class system inside the family. I mean, that's the worst thing that can be done.
right. And actually, that's what I was going to focus on next because I know when I was growing up, I seemed to need management and help a lot more than my sister did. So, and I've seen this in too many families where not only is the sibling playing a supportive role, which is wonderful, but also to the point to the detriment of the fact that they're not getting the attention that they need as a child
Sure.
growing up. So how do parents, with all the different challenges that there are in life and the extra support that they need to give to their child on the spectrum, how do they balance this with making sure that the spouse, the other kids, they get that attention? What's the takeaway that you have for them?
You need to set up one-to-one time with each person in the family. You turn your cell phone off. The world isn't going to end in 15 minutes if you don't respond to a text or a phone call. And make that one-to-one time specific for that individual. Talk about their interests, ask them what's happened during the day or the week, if they have challenges, if they need help. But that individual time, now, whether it's at bedtime for each child, but I know a lot of people work multiple jobs and it's a challenge. But at some point, if you're driving your child to school, or an outing, maybe that's a time where you can have one-to-one time. Particularly in a vehicle where the child can't run away if they're if they don't want to participate. It's a way to start building a routine. It was a commercial I saw recently where a mom was saying sometimes she takes the longer route home so she has more time with her son on the way home from baseball practice.
Yeah, I actually recall that within my own family, And I think the tip that you just gave goes for any family. This is important for you to set up this because you don't want the kids to be competing for your attention. And also, in many families, there is one care provider that is the primary care provider, and the other person is not as involved. But that doesn't mean that the other person who's not as involved is not needed. So, for those individuals that are either pursuing a career or are less available, it is important for you to make sure that you set up individual times with each of the children, because that's what I noticed, that the kids were competing with one another to get our attention. So once a week I had time with my son, once a week I had time with my daughter, and my wife did the same thing to make sure that they all feel that they were cared for. That's a great advice. And to
Yeah.
this day, they comment about the wonderful quality that they got out of that. They really filled their cups. So it's a great
Yeah,
tip.
that's
Thank you
really
so much.
essential. It really is.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Carol, anything else that you would like to share with parents while we have you here? I know you're busy, and then of course I do want to give your contact information to them as well. But anything
You
else?
know, I had an extremely successful corporate career. I'm dyslexic and ADD, and I recommend for anybody who's having trouble with dyslexia is the availability of books on any type of CDs, audios is a way to solve that problem. And that's another way to encourage your child to uncover their strengths. I actually do 60 books a year because I drive a lot from where I live. And that has just been a saver because if I would sit down to read, in 5 or 10 minutes I would fall asleep because it truly is extremely difficult if you struggle with that challenge. So that's another
Wonderful.
aspect because 50% of people with ADD or ADHD are also dyslexic. So that's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
first place to start and just to broaden their perspective.
Yeah, different modes. Always, like you said, playing within the people's strengths. You might not be visual, but you might be auditory or you might be tactile, and you need to be able to identify that within the kids or even yourself to make sure that you maximize your ability to interact and become relevant to this world. So I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Carol,
Yeah.
how can people find out more about you and your organization?
The simplest way is my email address. It's Carol, Carol, last name Vincie, no space, V as in Victor, Incie @gmail.com. If you send me an email, just give me a little bit of information and I will get back to you and we can chat or if you have a specific question I can help. I will answer that. And I definitely just want to share the information that I've been able to gain in this my personal discovery process because I've lived it and that's much better than reading from a book.
I totally agree. I totally agree. So for our audience members, for parents, this is the part where you actually take action. Please make sure if you're driving, of course, be safe, but do make sure that you connect with Carol, take the time to make this connection and also role model this behavior. This is important for our kids to understand that the world is not a scary place, that there are genuinely good people like Carol that are trying to make this world a better place. So it's okay not to have all the answers. It is okay to reach out for support. So do make sure that you support Carol and support yourself by building these connections. Also, if you haven't already done so, connect with us via clicking like and subscribe onto this channel so you get notified of all the wonderful experts like Carol that come to our channel to share their expertise and their gifts with you. And we look forward to being able to serve you guys in any capacity that is possible in making sure that you have a happy, healthy, and full family. Carol, before we finish, any final words for our audience members today?
Everybody has a strength. I challenge you to find it, whether it's in yourself or the people you come in contact with.
Well said. Well said. Until next time, guys, take care. Cheers.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Carol.